cottage or apartment there. Little houses, decent sized houses.
Yeah, that was really,
For about the same price.
that's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go wherever. I'll live in a dumpster with Ian. 'Cause he's so amazing, so.
But Idaho Falls is pretty good price in terms of rentals. Especially this time of year, you should be able to find a nice one.
Okay.
Yeah, I hate to say that, but it's just pounding me that you need to get out of that city.
Okay.
You did great, babe. You did great with
Oh, we love it. So amazing.
Yeah,
Grateful for you.
he wanted to know, who I went to Arizona with, so I just, I drove with Ian and, yeah, I mean, he,
Maybe stopping at 33 minutes, 26 seconds. And looking at the clock, I'm assuming the court would like to break for lunch.
Yeah, I think that would be an ideal time to do that if we can, Ms. Blake. Okay, we'll go ahead and take our lunch recess. We will return back at 1 o'clock.
All right, please. District Court's again in session.
Thank you. Please be seated. You have the jurors return. Thank you.
All right, please. Is all present and accounted for, Your Honor?
Thank you. Please be seated. Okay, we're back on the record on case CR 2221-1623, State of Idaho versus Chad Daybell, continuing with direct examination of Mr. Pulowski after the lunch break. If the witness is available, he can return and we continue with your direct. All right, Mr. Pulowski is returned to the stand. I'll remind you, Mr. Pulowski, you are still under oath. And I am going to inquire simply because of the order of witnesses here, and we did have the lunch break. Did you discuss your testimony or anybody else's testimony about the trial while you were on the lunch break?
I did not.
Okay, thank you. You can continue, Ms. Blake.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Pulowski, right before we broke for lunch, we'd listened to a little bit of a lengthier clip of that recording. Do you recall that?
You'd have to refresh me a little bit.
Do you recall in that clip do you recall hearing Chad on that?
Yes,
And do you recall hearing Lori?
yes,
And do you recall there being talk of you and Lori needing to move?
Melanie and I,
Or, excuse me, yes, Melanie and you needing to move.
yes,
And did Lori talk about that?
yes,
And did Chad talk about that?
yes,
And do you recall there being talk of Melanie feeling like she was having to flee?
yes,
And do you recall Lori responding and basically saying that she and Chad were fleeing because of agency?
Judge, I'm going to object at this point. We're leading the witness.
Sustain.
And Your Honor, I can replay the audio clip if we want to do that.
You can.
Thank you. Your Honor, I'll be starting it from 26 minutes and 7 seconds.
Very well.
I don't think it's gonna keep going and going. What can they possibly do?
He says he's not gonna stop until, till they get what they want. So I don't know. There's some,
So you need to get out of that complex. Not rush out of there, but soon. They're not gonna leave you alone. I just sense the network is pretty deep, and they're gonna see you as the target since you're the only one that they really can find at the moment. For your own sake, for your own sanity, be best. We know you were led there, and it worked for 2 months for us as we planned and got together, and you found Ian, and now a different phase of your life has begun.
so his kids are in Rexburg and Natalie,
I know. You don't have to move super far away.
just a different city.
Madison County, probably.
Well, it's in Rexburg.
I'm not saying you got to decide tonight, but the tech complex went from a blessed place to a cursed place due to the
Yeah.
wickedness of the police.
No, you not expect the police to be that wicked.
Well, and if it is just gonna be a couple weeks, like we could do an Airbnb and just stay in Idaho Falls somewhere. I mean, Ian works there. And that's close enough to where we could go pick up the kids and they wouldn't even know that we're not in Rexburg. But do you feel like a whole physical change of address, moving everything to a new place is what will be best?
Yeah, I know it's a pain, but I think they're not gonna leave you alone, so you're out of that city.
The Saints in Missouri, I just keep moving and I can't find a safe place.
Even sugar, even like,
So how do you get Aramasio to stop? 'Cause he's not gonna stop. He's so like raged with this whole thing. He was just pacing, like yelling at me, like he's like, I'm not gonna stop for anything. And how do you resolve that, I guess?
You get out of it, like,
Okay.
he's not going anywhere. It's like the standard story where the wicked stay in one place and the righteous flee. In this case, it's not a whole community, it's you. You went in, fleeing out of the way of darkness. Like Lehi had to leave Jerusalem. I wasn't expecting it to go on and on. You have to move every 2 weeks. Maybe get on Zillow and whatever website and just investigate a little bit.
I saw a cute little house for sale in Ashton's further from your work. So probably 40 minutes. Probably Idaho Falls will be the best.
And I'm gonna pause at 29:47. Mr. Pulowski, in listening to that, did you hear at the beginning where there was an indication, Melanie saying he's not gonna stop until he gets what he wants?
Yes.
Do you know who the he is that she's talking about there?
Detective Hermosillo.
And do you recall hearing in there Chad speaking as well?
Yes.
And do you hear reference to Melanie essentially being a target for the police?
Yes.
So Chad and Lori were aware the police were trying to talk to Melanie?
Yes.
At any point in this recording, did Chad and Lori offer to come forward with the whereabouts of the children?
No.
Do you recall in here Chad again telling you and Melanie that you should move out of Rexburg?
Yes.
Do you recall Melanie asking how she gets Detective Hermosillo to stop?
Yes,
Do you recall Chad's response?
yes,
What was that?
get away.
Do you recall him saying essentially, you get out of his way?
Yeah, just leave Rexburg.
Did Chad or Lori at any point encourage Melanie to cooperate with the police?
No,
I'm going to continue playing.
That way
Yeah,
you're
that's
supposed to
what we
work.
work at.
Isn't Rexburg like the place of safety when all the things happen?
Yeah, but there's been lots of prophecies about major turmoil there. The plague's gonna sweep through Rexburg. Civil unrest, I had a vision of Second East where McDonald's is and everything, just chaos, people starving, fighting. So there is still a stretch of bad times coming to Rexburg before it's City of Light. So we had to kind of pave the way, but, and we were told to flee.
I'm going to pause at 30 minutes, 32 seconds. Did you hear Chad say we were told to flee?
yes,
And at this point, were Chad and Lori in Rexburg?
No.
Did you know where they were?
no,
Did they disclose to you where they were?
no,
It's because of agency, right? We were all told to go there and that was where we were supposed to stay. And because of the agency of the dark and because Lucifer is able to negotiate terms still to this day about eternal law, he's been allowed to do certain things that had to force us out with the police. We had no idea the police were infiltrated with such dark people. In Rex,
I'm going to pause there at 31 minutes, 3 seconds. Did you hear Lori talking about part of why they fled?
yes,
And did you hear her talk about anything in relation to the police?
that they had been infiltrated.
itself proper. So we,
Makes sense in retrospect, but you don't think that immediately, that little Rexburg would be planted with Cain's translated followers, but that's,
You hear Chad reference Cain's translated followers.
Yes.
Did you know what he meant by those words?
Not sure if I learned it before or after that point, but essentially that Cain had his own 12 dark disciples, immortal disciples.
And was Chad referencing those individuals as part of the police department?
Yes.
Judge, objection, calls for speculation.
Overruled.
makes
it's
sense.
because of so many light multi-creations being there. And of course, the dark ones are there too. So opposition in all things. So we just feel like it's time to, just because of this situation, not be there for a season.
Yeah.
You don't have to go far. But just get out of their line of sight for
Okay.
your own sanity. And for Ian to be able to go to work and not, and feel like you're okay there by yourself, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it just feels that way. It just feels kind of eerie when Ian's not there. I just don't want to be there by myself.
Right, I mean, you've done everything to decorate that place so cute, do everything so adorable, but
There's just looking on Idaho Falls rentals on Trulia, and there's several that are just as good as your apartment there. Little houses, decent sized houses,
yeah, that one's really,
for about the same price.
that's really cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll go wherever. I'll live in a dumpster with Ian. 'Cause he's so amazing, so.
But Idaho Falls is pretty good price in terms of rentals. Especially this time of year, you should be able to find a nice one.
Okay.
I'll stop there at 32 minutes, 51 seconds. Did you hear Chad referencing some possible rentals for you and Melanie to consider?
Yes.
So as well as encouraging you to move, he was suggesting potential places.
Correct.
And we talked before about your observations of Melanie's relationship with Chad and Lori.
Yes,
Would you say that she would turn to them for advice?
absolutely.
I'm going to play starting at 34:57.
I know Dad, you were saying to get some money out just so Natalie couldn't like come after finding out I had money and try to get more child support or whatever. So I went and got 50,000 out and this banker came up.
Stopping at 35:11. Did you hear Melanie in that recording?
Yes,
When she says dad, do you know who she was talking to?
he's referring to Chad.
And starting at 35:58.
How grateful we are.
We,
We love him, taking care of you. That's so sweet.
Mel, do you need another blessing?
Yeah, can you give me and Ian like a combined blessing, whatever comes for either of us? Do you have any questions you wanna ask? No. You can ask anything.
Sure.
We don't know what Ian knows, so. you're
Ian
gonna
knows
tell us
everything.
that.
I have not, Ian has figured out most stuff by himself, but he,
And stopping at 36:29. Did you hear the reference in there to you know everything?
Yes,
Do you know what Melanie was referring to?
the religious beliefs, kind of their mission that they had chosen, what they believed their role was in the world.
Did you learn things about light and dark?
Yes,
Did you learn things about casting?
yes,
Did you learn things about people being zombies?
yes,
And did you learn, was Melanie the one that shared those with you?
yes.
Do you know where they originated?
Chad.
There was talk in there of giving you a blessing.
Yeah.
Do you recall if Chad actually followed through with that?
I believe he did, yes. I think everybody took part in it.
And again, we'd talked before about a blessing you received over Zoom.
Mhm.
For this blessing, you were not present in the same place.
No.
So was that also, was this out of the ordinary with what you would expect within the LDS faith?
On this current recording?
Yes.
Yes.
And starting at 39:06.
We go to Mel and Ian in Jackson and invite all those others
Raeliel and Ilana.
to join us and all others in the heavenly realm that are willing to participate at this time. Come jump in, baby. So we all lay our hands on your head. This will be a dual blessing. Emma and Al blessings yesterday, and the angels filled the room, and I feel that the same numbers are there again. Same wonderful helpers, angelic ministers are there, happily joining in on this blessing. So at this time, I say to you, Ian and Melanie Pulowski, the power of the Holy Melchizedek priesthood and the patriarchal order of which we are a part of, and in the name of our Savior Jesus Christ, we lay our hands upon your head in a united effort of happiness for your union, and how vital it is to the overall plan of our Lord and Savior in these latter days. You are a powerful couple with unlimited potential, and you'll be utilized by the Lord in tremendous missions of life and salvation, or you'll team with Mother Earth to help cleanse the earth at times through earthquakes, moving mountains, changing rivers, but also healing hearts of mankind through your powerful testimony. Trials you're going through right now are events that you'll be able to share with others who are experiencing trials in the future. You'll be able to relate to them and understand what they've been through, the persecutions that they've faced by supposed Christians, and you will make it so much easier for them to transition to accepting the gospel. I see you both all over the world through portals, helping those who need to come to Zion. See you back and forth, raising your children, but also leaving them in the care of trusted family members because of your great power and importance. You will spend days and weeks at a time helping bring groups to Zion. Those are wonderful promises, and I know they will come true. I bless you now on a more personal level. Melanie, you can quickly heal from your illness. That this combined group will use their healing power to strengthen you and bless you. We reach into your physical body and extract any spiritual or physical illnesses, pain, phobias, all kinds of possible darkness that has been implanted in you. I remove it all. I sever all negative cords, and this blessing includes Ian, that we are doing this for you as well, Ian. Severing all negative cords and clearing you of weapons and lifting curses that may have been placed upon you. Now I just cleanse you of that darkness that was placed in you at the police station. Once again, we just thank you for your valiant way, your strong, resolute devotion to the gospel and to our team. What you've accomplished this week will resonate with you throughout your life and through the eternities. The blessings that you'll receive for your faithfulness, for taking the steps you have. Bless you now by binding your hearts together more than ever, literally wrapping around each other and putting cords of light around them, that you cannot be separated spiritually, and that even the times where you're apart, the physical world, you'll still feel that connection and unity. You are a special couple who have known each other in the past and have helped each other so much already. And your union will be looked upon as a true love story, happiness and how to treat one another. Will be an example to thousands and even millions of how a man and a woman should respect and love each other. I bless your union and know that the Savior is standing there with us, and he is very pleased, very, very pleased with your choices. They might not make sense to the celestial world, but in the terrestrial and celestial world, they make perfect sense. And for your valiant efforts, you will be memorialized, and they're singing praises in heaven. I see it. Choir of thousands, like they make up the songs as they go, like Lolo does. But they're praising you too right now, and just singing to the heavens for what you've accomplished. And we want to include Alan's dilemma in this blessing again. Just what a tremendous friendship we formed. 6 of us are on the right track. I assure you of that. I give you my testimony that this is a power team, that we are the genesis of the 144,000. We don't say that boastfully. It just is the beginning of a new terrestrial order. And Ian, we're so grateful you're a part of it. We love you already so much. We miss you and can't wait to see you again. And we will see each other again soon. It feels like we're going into different corners of the world for a short time. The changes are coming quickly to the earth that will allow us to reunite and not be under the pressure of the celestial police forces, that they will have greater problems to deal with, and even those that are pursuing us may have their lives with effort. And that will open up the way for us to use our powers fully and to continue to cleanse the earth and to bless it. Mother Earth loves each one of us and knows us. We will be helping her remove darkness from this world. I promise you a home in New Jerusalem. All of us will each have homes there. That will be our home base as we work under the direction of the Savior. And we'll have wonderful reunions there in between our missions. It'll be a glorious place where the vibrations will just radiate constantly. We'll feel the love of the Lord tangibly. We will be beacons of light. We will be pillars of fire. Blessings that have begun for us will just continue to accelerate. So I bless all of us one more time with physical strength, spiritual devotion, and emotional stability as we face these small but trying times. The trials are real, but we will overcome them. And the Lord is watching over us. And I leave this blessing upon us all in the name of Jesus Christ and fill it up unto heaven. Amen.
Mr. Pulowski, did you hear talk in there of portals?
Yes.
Do you know what was being referenced?
My understanding is at the time, well, now is, and at the time was that upon reaching a certain ability or level of spiritual worthiness and strength, you could open up a portal and step through it and land anywhere you saw fit.
Is that something that you had ever learned about before in religious teachings?
Not in that context, no.
And then there was talk of cords as well,
Mhm.
cutting cords. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Do you know what was meant by reference to cords?
My understanding is cords kind of act as anchors to negative things or positive things, things that tie you to a negative force or a positive force.
Was that something that you'd heard about before in a religious context?
No.
And then there was reference to removing spiritual weapons. Do you know what was meant by that?
That they were similar to cords was my understanding, that there's something that could bind itself to you basically and wound you spiritually.
Had you ever heard of that type of teaching in a religious setting before?
No.
And then did you hear in there or recall talk of the 144,000?
Yes.
And do you know what Chad's role was with the 144,000 or what he claimed it to be?
144,000 would be the group of individuals that would bring in the second coming of Jesus Christ.
Do you know if Chad and Lori designated themselves the leaders of that group?
It seemed that way, yes.
Do you recall again reference to the of darkness in the police?
Yes.
I think he made reference to the telestial police force.
Yes.
Do you know what would have been meant by the telestial?
So in traditional LDS faith, there are three kingdoms that you would pass into after judgment: the celestial, the terrestrial, and telestial. So telestial is basically the earth that we live on now. Terrestrial is a step beyond that. Celestial is, the fullness of glory.
So the telestial police would reference the police here on Earth.
Correct.
And do you recall in there Chad indicating that they would have greater things to deal with eventually?
Yes.
And then a reference that it would open the way for us to use our powers fully.
Yes.
And then do you recall Chad saying that they could continue to cleanse the earth?
Yes.
Do you know what they intended to cleanse the earth of?
Not specifically. There were, things that Melanie had shared she was worried about. There were discussions of earthquakes that could happen to, tear down. There was one that was talked about that was going to happen in Utah, and at that point, anybody who was wounded or weakened would be possessed, and you'd have to cleanse those people or cast out, whatever had possessed them. Casting out wickedness, spreading the gospel, that sort of thing.
So the people that would be cleansed or cast out would be those that were possessed?
Correct.
So those labeled dark.
Correct.
And turning to 1 hour, 3 minutes and 39 seconds.
I don't think
Serena?
so, but she could.
It's just
We
sad
worked
for
on-
Gib.
We worked on Gib spiritually, healing her and helping her and cutting her cords from Dave all day.
Yeah, I worked on her
Last night,
today too, just sending her lots of love to cast out all this fear that's inside her.
it was all just fear. It's all celestial fear. And I needed to remind her, and I didn't get to talk to her, but I needed to remind her, like I did when she was getting divorced. You are not a celestial being anymore. So don't go to the celestial world. But that's what she's doing and Dave's talking her into doing it. So I need to remind her, she's a terrestrial being. Dave is not. That's the problem.
And he's not gonna be.
And he's not going to be at this rate. He's not going to be, so sad. I wanted that for her, but I love her so much. It's such a doll.
Yeah, I know.
But I don't think she's gonna do it. She's down to, what's her percentage now? 10% that she might do it.
That's good.
I think she wrote it down, and after she wrote it down, she doesn't really want to do it. So I don't think she did it, but she's down to 10% that she's gonna do it.
We want to know our,
I'm going to stop at 1 hour, 4 minutes and 55 seconds. Again, in there, there's talk of a Dave and Gib. Do you know who those individuals are?
Yes, David Warwick and Melanie Gibb.
And there's talk of Lori telling Melanie that she needs to get over just has telestial fear. So again, would that be referencing earthly fear?
Correct.
And then she references that Melanie's not a telestial being anymore. She's now a terrestrial being.
Correct.
Do you know what's being indicated there?
That she either she had gone through the process of translation or she was going through it.
And there was reference as well to cutting cords from Dave. Do you
Mhm.
recall hearing that?
Yes.
And again, you described you could be attached to something positive or negative.
Correct.
If it was negative, is that when you'd want to cut the cords?
Yes.
So the indication would be Lori viewed Dave as negative.
Correct.
You mentioned translation.
Yeah.
Had you heard of translation before?
Yes.
Had you ever heard of it in the way that Chad and Lori were teaching it?
It sounded similar. You know, I had heard of it in scripture. You know, you talk about the city of Enoch being translated, taken up into heaven, that sort of thing. But I had never heard of it in the exact context that they were talking about.
And turning to the 1 hour, 23 minute and 29-second mark.
Talking all the time.
Well, we gotta do. Yeah, there's nothing else to do, all right, there's nothing left on it. Yeah, Al, you know better.
And stopping at 1 hour, 23 minutes and 41 seconds. Did you hear Al on there indicating there's nothing left to do in Rexburg?
Yes.
And did you hear someone respond, yeah, Al, you know better?
Yeah.
Do you know who responded that?
Sounded like Chad.
At the time this call was placed, do you know if Alex was still living in Rexburg?
He had left Rexburg at the time this call had been placed.
Do you know if he still had an apartment there,
He did.
but he was not residing there?
Correct.
Your Honor, we can go off of casting for a moment in the HDMI.
Okay.
And excuse me, Mr. Pulowski, I'd ask you about another recording that was made the day Alex passed away. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And do you believe if you were to hear some of that recording that you would be able to recognize it?
Absolutely.
Your Honor, I have what's been marked as states 266B. My intent would be to ask to publish a portion of it for, to allow him to lay the foundation.
All right, for that limited purpose, you can publish just enough to lay foundation.
I remember you giving
And Mr. Pulowski, could you hear a couple women on there?
Yes.
Are you able to recognize who they were?
That was Melanie, who was present in the room, and then Lori was on the phone.
And do you recognize this recording?
Yes.
And is it the recording that you made approximately December 11th of 2019?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would move for admission, this state's exhibit.
266B, have you had a chance to review that, Mr. Pryor?
I have reviewed that, Judge, but I'm going to ask that we're going to be admitting that we admitted it in its entirety, please.
And the state's intent would be to admit the entirety. I have it as 56 minutes is what will be admitted, and the state would intend to simply publish portions today.
Okay, well, exhibit 266B is admitted. And as you did in the previous exhibit, Ms. Blake referenced the portions that are being published, so the record acknowledges that. And with that, you may proceed.
And Mr. Pulowski, do you know if Melanie was close with Alex Cox?
Yes.
Was she upset by his passing?
Yes.
And this recording is made the same day that she learned of his passing?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'm moving to minute 6. Well, 6:40 is the timestamp.
I mean, it's sad, like, so what do you believe in anymore, Mel? It's nothing, like, you know, it's just sad for her.
It's so sad for her, like.
But She. I kind of had a glimpse of that today, cause I was like, what's gonna happen with that? And she was like, did you know Lori said that she felt inspired to say that I had JJ? And I was like, yeah, you were inspired to say that. Because look what's happened, like, and, I don't know.
I was inspired to say that. I have to work research, so I was like, I don't want to say that.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, everything has happened how it's supposed to, I feel like, and it's just sad for her, but I had a glimpse of her like she's just doing this because she wants Dave so much, and Dave is totally deceived her, and I had a glimpse of her, like, when everything goes down and it's like us standing together, like, he will feel like we'll just embrace her with love, but she'll come around finally.
And stopping at 8 minutes even. Mr. Pulowski, again, we hear talk of a Melanie and Dave. And Dave, do you know which Melanie and Dave that's referring to?
Yeah, Melanie Gibb and David Warwick.
And Mark being 8:44.
He's been a huge part of our life. We talk to them every night.
Yeah.
They're like our only friends. You guys are all
I know, I call him every day, I just, even if we talked about nothing, I just need to talk to him and report to him and tell him everything.
And stopping at 9:05. Did you hear Lori in there referencing someone that we talk to every night?
Yes,
Do you know who that reference is in regards to?
I believe at that time they were referencing God.
I'm going to 9:18.
Do you know, my other phone, is it being tracked or recorded or listened to, my 480 number?
The one you had. Yes, we're getting yes.
Okay, so I'm keeping it, I just talked to Ian on it basically and make sure there's phone calls, so.
So I've got a line for my. Like that, what's
Yeah.
Let me give you a blessing and then Al will join us.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, Ian's gonna join too, we'll go on my. closet.
I'm going to pause here briefly at 10 minutes even. Did you hear in there Melanie inquiring if her phone was being tracked?
Yes,
And what was the response from Lori?
that they were getting yes.
Was it common for Melanie to turn to Chad and Lori for answers?
Yes,
And Judge, might I inquire, is the volume all the way up on the courtroom speakers?
We'll check because it is difficult to hear.
I'm seeing a nod yes. I think this one's just a little more difficult to hear. I
Okay.
just wanted to verify. Continuing on at the 10-minute mark.
And I'm going to clear the house. Any darkness or booby traps or time bombs that might affect you, and raise the vibration in the house, and put sheets of light around all sides and may protect you above and below, and close all dark portals that are nearby. You feel protected. The dark side can be kept at bay. But this time, Melanie Pulowski, by the power of the Holy Melchizedek priesthood and the patriarchal order, in the name of Jesus Christ, We lay our hands upon your head and invite many others to come. There the front of the wind. Oh boy, might have been Moroni out of the way. You know, I'd like that. Right there. We love you, Al. So grateful for you. We love you back. But dear Mel, we bless you now with strength and power. You've been so courageous and valiant, faithful, and such a true friend. Always wonderful person. This time, I include Ian in the blessing as well by removing any weapons or curses or negative cords that are attached to either one of you. Just sever them all and turn those curses to whoever sent them and destroy the weapons that you can feel powerful. Fill you with light and love, strength with our healing solution. Pour that into your bodies so that every bit of you, every cell can be rejuvenated and feel that strength. We bind your hearts together. You are an amazing pair. Love you both so much. Bless you with confidence in the Lord. You are moving forward, both of you, so well. Jesus is with us. We are being guided and instructed. And seems like such a tragedy, but Al is triumphant, exalted. And he is saying over and over, I can help you so much more now. I couldn't believe the avenues that are now open to me to help you, help Mel, help with the children. This is my next step of my mission, to help you all from this side in a powerful, protective way. Ways that I could not even imagine. That's what he's saying. I will, he said. Frankly, I will. Fear not. I am with you. Sharing that it was the Savior himself who told him it was well done. You can now move forward and continue your mission. You hardly got a break. I don't think you've got a life review, which is probably fine with him. But he is at work. He is already on the job helping us. I bless you, Mel, with physical strength, healing. Your body can feel mended and whole. Bless you emotionally. I lock down any anxiety, emotions, your anxiety gene. I put it aside and lock it down. We can feel calm with this struggle. I bless you spiritually that your knowledge of the gospel and its fullness is strengthened, and you know it is true. And again, I bless you to continue to just have that faith. You are a powerful man. You're on the Lord's team. I know you're struggling with your ex-wife and those kind of issues, but the Lord is with you more than you ever believe. He's right there. In that room, there are dozens of angels who are eager for you to succeed. You will. I bless you with the ability to communicate with us more regularly. We'll figure out ways to do so. Stay in touch to strengthen each other and bless each other. And now turn it over to Lily to add a few more words to this blessing.
Melanie, Ian, we're so grateful for you as people and as powerful warriors on our team. Our team has been dwindling. All the people that we've trusted, that we can count on you to be many valiant, faithful warriors. I'm so proud of you, so grateful for you, and love you so much. I've seen and know that you have great missions ahead of you, that you will be in New Jerusalem with all of your children. You will be happy there, and you will go from there, and you will be given assignments directly from Jesus Christ, and you will go on assignment, and you will go rescue lots of children. You've seen Melanie being in charge of how the children being brought back will be distributed and helped and loved, and she didn't think she liked that job, but she is going to love that job. It's something that she is great at organizing and helping and loving all those children. You will both have the opportunity to love so many children and help so many children in this lifetime. We are grateful for you being strong. It's been hard, but I endow you with power at this time to have that strength during this time of sorrow. We sorrow for ourselves because we'll miss our friend and buddy, but we do not sorrow for him, for he is powerful and glorious at this very moment, and more powerful to help us in this celestial world as we move swiftly and quickly into the terrestrial world, as we are destined on that course. The Lord is coming soon, and we are his warriors that are cleaning and purifying the earth and preparing it for his coming. He has asked us to do so on this errand, and you are both a part of that number one team. It is our job, and we will do it. And he will come and rule and reign in majesty and power and might, and everything will be glorious, and there will be no more tears, and there will be no more pain. And I promise that you will be there by his side, as will we. You were destined for this. You were born for this. You have been prepared for this. Do not doubt. Do not fear. Have great faith and go along each day knowing that the Lord is aware of both of your situations. His hand is in it. You will send his angels, including Alex, this wonderful warrior, to clear the way that you will be reunited with the children, and it will be a glorious reunion. Do not fear and do not doubt. Call down angels to surround you at all times, legions of angels that we have in our charge that will be round about you at all times, that they may help you feel peace and comfort as you go on about your daily celestial tasks that you must do. And remember, you will be reunited, and it will be glorious, and it will be soon.
I'll show up this blessing for both of you. Seal it up in heaven. The angels will not leave you desolate this evening. You'll feel them throughout the night and into tomorrow. And guide you in every step. We do this all in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
You're welcome.
And pausing there at 1917. Mr. Plowski, we'd talked before that you were open to these ideas for a brief period of time.
Yes.
When these recordings were made, were you still open to these ideas?
No.
That, excuse me, in that blessing again, did you hear reference to removing weapons
Yes.
and removing curses,
Yes.
cutting negative cords?
Yes.
And again, is that something that you'd ever heard in religious teachings prior to this group?
No. Removing curses had been something that I'd heard about, but cords and weapons I had not.
And had you heard about it in the context that Chad and Lori talked about it?
Yes.
These are two calls. When you were recording the calls, were there any other times that Chad and Lori were on any calls?
You'd have to refresh my memory. There's I believe there were, I want to say there were 9 recordings that I made, if I remember correctly.
Yes, I believe so, around 9.
And I don't remember all of them. You know, if If you were to play them for me, I could absolutely identify them, but
You'd be able to. In the times that you would have conversations with Chad and Lori, was it common for Chad to offer up a blessing?
Yeah.
Did you have very many interactions with Chad where a blessing wasn't given?
No.
Was that something that you were used to within standard religious teachings?
no.
And continuing on from that 1917.
Mel, what did you talk to Julie about? Did you talk to him about Al's witness? What is she planning on doing? Do you know?
She called me first. I was like, well, what did mom and dad say? And she said, I just called you first.
I know.
She said, I don't know what he would want. And I said, he just didn't care about anything in this world. He just wanted his guitar out of his house. He didn't want anything. And so I said, he probably would want to just have it be simple and cheap, like be cremated. And I said, you know, talk to dad. Dad knows how to do all that stuff since he was a sexton.
And when we hear Melanie refer to mom and dad, do you know who she's referencing?
Chad and Lori.
And then she talks about Chad or dad, excuse me, dad being familiar with that. Do you know who that dad is?
Yes, that's Chad.
Right.
But
Yeah, that would be the best way. I think a lot like Charles, just simple.
but not at all like Charles.
Well,
In the sense of maybe have him cremated and
Well, what are you gonna go to Arizona or can you or what do you think?
we don't know yet. Maybe not.
Yeah.
I don't know if we should deal with the family at all. I don't know if the police are gonna let them know or they're
Yeah.
just gonna leave it to Julie to let people know if she should even let anybody know.
Yeah, I thought of that too, that maybe it'd be better if I don't want Brandon to know. I want him to be in fear of Al the rest of his life.
Well, he should be more in fear of him now than he ever has been. I'm sure
Yeah.
he's #1 on his list.
Yeah, I just felt so much peace during that
He's
blessing.
#2.
I felt so much peace during that blessing that like Al's like gonna be with Breezy and Braxton and
Absolutely.
And I'm going to pause there at 2056. Did you hear conversation there about Chad and Lori, whether they were going to travel to Arizona?
Yes.
Do you know why Melanie was wondering if they were going to go to Arizona?
Because her kids are in Arizona.
Do you know if Alex's services would have been in Arizona?
That's where Dilemma lived, so that was the most appropriate location.
And moving forward. And going to 2237.
so I don't know.
So I was telling Al that Tammy, I don't remember if we told you this, but Tammy was here the other day and said how the Rexburg police are ridiculous. And she told me that as we
We
were
know
trying to
already.
converse with her. And then Al was laughing at that so hard, so I'm like, he's gonna be handling the police from now on.
Yeah, he can handle Hermosillo from now on. I was so upset though because they still have all my stuff and like I don't care about my things, but I have a hard drive that has all my pictures on it and
Right.
I'm just frustrated with them. Like they have no reason to even keep it, but
They don't, but they're just corrupt. So
so
they're just
are
going
they the ones tracking my phone or is it Brandon? Or both?
it's Rexburg.
Yeah, they are checking you.
I'm going to pause at 2330. Mr. Plowski, did you hear a reference to the name Tammy?
Yes.
Do you know who they were referencing?
Tammy Daybell.
Do you know at this point in time if Tammy was alive or not?
She was not.
And Melanie's inquiring again about her phone being tracked. Did you hear that?
Yes.
Did you hear Chad's response as to who's tracking her phone?
Rexburg.
And is that in reference to Rexburg Police Department?
Yes.
Continuing on at 2330.
Just have faith that we'll get all of that back for you.
We
Yeah,
will.
I don't care. It's just I just didn't know if I needed to call them and get it back or if I should if they call me and say they want to give it back to me, they're gonna do what they did last time and just corner me in a room for hours.
Told that if you then it'll start the circus over.
So just avoid them.
Yeah,
Okay.
Al's passing is kind of a marker for us all to just move forward. Trust in the Lord. I
Yeah.
feel bad.
I'm gonna pause at 24:07. From that conversation, does it sound like Melanie had talked to the police before?
Yes,
Does it appear that Chad's encouraging her to speak to the police again?
he's not.
Is he encouraging her to avoid them?
Yes,
And then Chad makes reference to with Al's passing, basically it's a chance to move forward.
Right.
Did you hear that in there?
yes.
Continuing on from 24:07.
Those items are still at that police station, but hopefully soon we can just get them back for you.
They told us they were gonna give us all our stuff back from Charles too, and they've never given it back to us. They have no intention of giving it back.
Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, I feel like if he comes to try to talk to me, like I'll just be shut down. I'll just be like, look, like I just lost my uncle. I don't want to, like I'm not talking about anything, you know.
Yeah, I don't have anything to say.
I don't have anything. I already said everything, and just leave me the freak alone and give me my stuff back or don't, but just don't talk to me. So,
Right.
but we're gonna stay here in our little apartment here in 174.
Okay,
And
we'll protect it. Also, we could probably, it's the same landlord as the 175.
yeah, it is.
So you
or
could
Jen-
maybe email her or something and tell her that Al passed away and so he's not gonna be doing the lease anymore or
I think he
whatever.
just put in his 30 days.
He already
so-
did.
I think he already did, but I should let her know.
Yeah, just so whatever you wanna do with that stuff, give it away or whatever, it's fine. We
Yeah.
don't care about anything in there.
Yeah, Al wanted me to just call DI and see if they'd come take all the stuff in the house, but I don't know if they'll do that.
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
Goodwill maybe would, I don't know.
Okay. You guys don't want anything out of there?
Nope.
I wonder if Zuli does.
I'm pausing at 25:43. Did you hear Melanie inquire if Chad and Lori want any of Alex's belongings?
Yes,
And did you hear Lori's response?
they don't want anything.
And this is the same day that Lori's brother had passed away,
I believe it was the day after that this recording was made.
even the day after. And she wanted nothing of his.
Right.
Continuing on from 25:43.
We just took his swords and his guitar, and all his like musical stuff. That's what he wanted, and
Right.
so
You take the Band Hero and the Xbox 360. I hope you already have it.
yeah, we got that.
Okay, good. So yeah, I don't care about anything in that house, so.
Hey, is this your number?
This is the number we're using today, but we might text
Change
you
by
from a
tomorrow.
different number tomorrow.
Okay, well, I'll,
'Cause this is the phone we were talking to Al on when all that happened and they went to search the house, so they probably got his phone.
yeah, well, you have my number, and I feel like it'll be, I don't know, I feel really safe with this phone, like I set it up really carefully with, so,
Yeah, it's good, babe. We have your number. I wrote it down on a piece of paper so that way I can call you.
okay. Maybe I should I can give you Ian's number or something, but you can always call me through Zuli or something too, so.
Right.
I'm gonna pause at 26:50. There was talk in there of Chad and Lori maybe changing their phone number. Did you hear that?
Yes.
Did you learn whether or not it was common for them to change their phone numbers?
Yeah, they went through quite a few burner phones.
Did Melanie always have access to that information?
Not always.
Did she sometimes have to rely on them to reach out to her?
Yes,
Did she always make sure they had a way to reach her?
yes.
Continuing on at 26:50.
Yeah, we'll just send a passport, what word would you recommend, just to let you know it's us?
So we were using Pretty Bird if it means your phone is not safe or the cops have your phone. And then we were using Not Happy Bob if if it's it's safe to, is that if it's safe to call?
Safe, yeah.
So, but the
Okay.
police have seen those text messages, so they might be on to that, so.
Come up with something
Let's
that-
say
Not
Jamie,
happy-ball.
Jamie Powell.
Jamie Powell?
Yeah, Jamie
Okay.
Powell, if it's like good, if it's you and it's good, it's safe to call, and if it's not safe to call, then we'll say, Daddy, we're down.
Okay, that's good. Jamie Powell and Daddy were down. Fine.
And stopping at 2744, there's talk there of some code words. Did you hear that in there?
Yes.
Do you know why the code words were necessary or why they wanted to have those?
They wanted to be sure that whatever phone they were using to communicate was not being tracked by the police.
Moving to 2929.
Everything's gonna be different. But Al set it up that I had Chad and you got Ian just before he left. He had to have us both protected because he was our protector.
Yeah.
And he couldn't go until that mission was accomplished. So I'm so
But he loves
grateful that you have
Julie.
Ian. Yeah, don't ruin it with Ian. Be not.
Gonna stop at 2955. In there, did you hear the reference to Al being a protector?
Yes.
Do you know who designated Al the protector?
I don't.
Judge,
know
I'm gonna object
specifically.
unless there's some foundation.
I'm asking if he knows.
Overruled.
I don't know.
Moving to 3001.
Oh, she's not gonna run me off.
You ever need to talk to Dad, here I am.
There you go.
Yeah.
Did you hear someone on there saying, ever need to talk to Dad? Here I am.
Yes.
And who's saying that?
Chad.
Do you know who he's saying that to?
Me.
At any point, had you referred to Chad as dad?
I may have. I'm sure. I'm pretty sure I'd kind of taken that up and just, in support of Melanie and how she looked to him.
Did you look to Chad as a dad?
No.
Did you look to Chad for advice?
No.
Moving to 3107.
If you have any feelings like I shouldn't go there, then just let me know, but otherwise you could probably leave tomorrow and just drive. I don't feel safe flying, so. After the police incident.
Yeah.
I'm not getting a yes or no yet. We just need to see what's transpiring with her, but then we'll talk and decide.
Okay,
Like, don't get up and pulled out of there at 6 a.m. or anything. Just,
okay. I'll just wait to hear from you.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And stopping at 3145. Do you know where Melanie was planning on going in that conversation?
I do not remember.
Did you hear her inquiring of Chad for advice?
Yes.
And did you hear Chad's responses to her?
Yes.
And did Chad ultimately direct her to wait to hear from him?
Yes.
And again, was it common for Melanie to turn to Chad for advice and counsel?
Yes.
I may have just a moment.
Yes.
I have no further questions.
I'm going to suggest we take our mid-afternoon recess at this time. We'll go ahead and take about 20 minutes. And I do briefly want to discuss an issue just with council in a sidebar. So we'll do that now.
All rise, please.
Thank you. I believe the jurors are lined up, so once we're ready, they can be brought in.
Yes, sir. All right, please. Please, President, count for your honor.
Thank you. Please be seated. All right, that concludes the mid-afternoon break. Mr. Pulowski's still on the stand on direct. We can have the witness brought back in. You can continue with direct, Ms. Blake.
Your Honor, I believe I just had concluded direct.
Oh, thank you for the reminder. I will have Mr. Pryor commence with cross then once our witness is back on the stand. Mr. Pryor, Mr. Pryor, you can start with your cross-examination whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Mr. Pulaski. My understanding is that your marriage to Melanie was when?
November 30th, 2019.
And prior to Melanie moving to Idaho, you hadn't met her before, is that right?
Correct.
And Melanie moved to Idaho in late November?
It was mid-October, I believe.
Okay. But you met Melanie through a LDS site, is that right, on about the 19th of November?
Dating app, yeah.
All right, on the 19th of November, sir?
Yes.
Okay. So from the 19th of November of 2019 to the 30th of November of 2019, your courtship was about 11 or 12 days, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And then you decided to get married after the 11 or 12 days, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. That's not particularly unusual in the LDS faith, is it? Early or quicker marriages, correct?
I'd say it's faster than most LDS marriages.
Okay, but for the most part, it's not unusually that for people.
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
Sustain.
Okay. And you met Chad for the first time on November 23rd, 2019?
Yes.
Okay. And you talked about all of these discussions with Chad, other than November 23rd of 2019. Isn't it true you never spoke to him face to face again until after that time?
Correct. I only met him in person on the 23rd of November.
And the only other contact you would have with Chad Daybell were these 9 recordings that you recorded. Is that fair?
There was one additional contact where I called and spoke with him and Lori directly.
When was that?
That was on November, I want to say it was the night of Thanksgiving, probably the 24th or 25th of November, 2019.
Were they on vacation somewhere at that point?
I don't know where they were.
Okay. Was that a lengthy phone call?
It was probably about 45 minutes.
Okay. 4 to 5 or 45?
45, 4 or 5.
45, okay. Now, in regards to your wife and Alex Cox, did they have frequent phone contact?
They spoke pretty regularly from, for the short time that I knew Alex.
And how would you define frequently?
Every other day, every 2 or 3 days.
Okay. And was that by phone call or was that by text message or was it by some other medium?
Phone call and text.
Okay. You heard on the the tape recording, I believe it was the second tape recording where either Lori or Melanie defined Alex as their protector. Is that right?
Right.
Okay. And you're aware of some of the allegations regarding your wife and Alex and Brandon Boudreaux, is that right?
I'm aware.
Okay. And in that situation, do you disagree that maybe Alex was Melanie's protector on that day?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Overruled.
I believe that Al was not acting as a protector.
Alex was not acting as a protector?
If he had her best interest in mind, he would not have done that.
Okay, all right. You could perceive where Alex felt he was being the protector on that day when he takes a pot shot at Brandon Boudreaux, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you're also aware of Charles Vallow, correct?
Yes.
And you're aware that Alex is accused of murdering Charles Vallow at
Yes.
close range? And are you aware that Chad Daybell is not implicated in that?
I was not.
Okay. But you're aware that Alex was implicated in that, correct?
Yes.
And the victim in that case, Charles Vallow, was Lori Vallow's husband, correct?
Yes.
So once again, Alex was the protector of Lori in that situation, right? Just like he was the protector of your wife with Brandon Boudreaux, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, counsel's testifying.
Sustained.
Move to strike.
Strike that answer, or I'm sorry, the question.
Did you ever get any information that your wife was a suspect in this case?
No.
Okay. Your wife lived close in proximity to Lori Vallow, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And would you say that your wife was and Lori were um, as far as relatives, as close as relatives could get?
Yes.
Okay. There was a mention of your wife being in the ER tonight. What was that all about?
She was suffering a medical condition that was causing her a lot of pain,
Okay.
and we went to the ER to sort it out.
Okay.
Mr. Pryor, I apologize to interrupt. I want to have a quick sidebar with counsel. quick issue taken up outside the presence of the jurors. We're not going to take a break necessarily. If they could just line up outside the hall, this should be very quick, and then we'll go back on after I address that outside of the jurors' presence.
Yes, sir. All rise, please.
All right, thank you. Please be seated. All right, counsel, the court was advised of something that concerned me during the testimony of this witness, nothing that you did, Mr. Pulowski, but I do have a concern. Mr. Pulowski has counsel here in the courtroom. The attorney that's here representing Mr. Pulowski, I'm going to have him exit the courtroom at this time. If the marshals please assist him out of the courtroom, and he's not going to be permitted to remain through the testimony of this witness. Mr. Pryor, if you want to briefly inquire on the issue we raised on the sidebar, you may do that outside of the presence of the jurors, just as to whether or not there was any potential influence of the witness's testimony.
Mr. Pulaski, the gentleman who was just escorted out of the courtroom, do you know who that is?
Yes, it's Garrett Smith.
That's who?
Garrett Smith.
He's an attorney
Yes,
and he's licensed in which state?
Arizona.
Okay. And at this point, Mr. Smith was listening to your testimony, is that correct?
Yes,
And at some point during the testimony, Mr. Smith was nodding his head and acknowledging to you about responses to my questions. Is that in fact true?
No.
Okay.
All right, that concludes the inquiry then, and we'll go ahead and have the jurors return for additional cross-examination. So if everyone would rise for the jurors, we'll go ahead and have the jurors brought back in.
All rise, please. So President, counter for your honor.
All right, thank you. Please be seated. All right, we're back on the record now on CR 22-21-16-23. The court did call a sidebar there. I would instruct the jurors who have returned now to not speculate as to what occurred in the sidebar. I will note it was nothing that counsel did on his cross-examination nor that the witness did. And so please don't speculate as to what occurred, but Mr. Pryor, with that in mind, you may continue.
Okay.
I'll also mention it was nothing the state did as well. It was just something the court observed. Go ahead.
Mr. Pulaski, you mentioned Melanie Gibb.
yes,
Did you have an occasion to get to meet Melanie Gibb?
no,
Okay. Now, you understand there were discussions around the 23rd of November about the disappearance of two children by the Rexburg Police Department. Were you aware of that?
yes. At the time, well, can you give me some context on timing?
November 23rd, 2019?
Right, but as far as when I would have learned about it,
Well, you were aware that on that date, the police were looking for JJ Vallow, is that correct?
yes, I learned that later. Yeah,
Learn that later. Okay. And you went and had contact with the police the first time when?
December 5th or 6th, I believe.
Okay. And that contact At the time of that contact, were you aware that on November 5th or 6th, Melanie Gibb had not gone to the police to tell them her side of the story?
I had not.
Do you recall on the tape recording, the first tape recording, 266A, where there's a discussion that there's only a chance Melanie's going to do this, or there's a chance that she's not going to do this?
Right, yes,
And that was in reference to whether or not she was going to the police and tell them the truth, correct?
right.
And that recording took place with you on what day, sir?
That was December 6th or 7th.
Okay, so on December 6th or 7th, would it be safe to assume that at that point Melanie Gibb had not gone to the police about the whereabouts of JJ?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation. I think the recording speaks for itself.
Sustained.
So the personal knowledge you have is that you don't know at that point if Melanie had gone to the police, correct?
Correct.
But there was a discussion about whether she was going to do that on the 5th or 6th, right? Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now was there ever an occasion where the police asked to look at your wife Melanie Pulowski's phone?
The only occasion I recall is when I was there at the police station, they were tracking her location.
Okay, they were tracking her location then.
Right.
Okay. There is some reference to the name Hermosillo.
Yes,
Is that one of the police officers that you interviewed with on the 6th or 7th?
yes.
And that Hermosillo is who?
He's currently lieutenant at the Rexburg Police Department. At the time, he was a detective.
Okay, but that's Lieutenant Ray Hermosillo? Correct. Okay. And your wife on one of the recordings, I think it's at 3326, mentions that Hermosillo is raged. Do you remember that?
Yes,
Okay, he's yelling at me. Remember that?
yes.
Okay. The police were harassing her?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Overruled.
Did you recall her saying the police were harassing her?
Objection, Your Honor, misstates the audio.
Sustained.
You recall her something saying not going to stop until they get what they want?
Yes.
Okay. Now, at any time, did Lori Vallow tell you or Melanie that this was all about a custody fight over the children with Larry and Kay Woodcock?
There were never any details discussed as to why it was happening.
Okay. So in other words, they didn't tell you that it was one issue or another, just that they weren't going to disclose where the children were, correct?
Correct.
And when they say they weren't, they meant Melanie and Lori and Alex, correct?
No,
Well, Chad never told you that the children were dead, correct?
no,
Chad never told you that the plan was that he was going to kill the children, correct?
that would be foolish. But no,
Okay.
he didn't.
Okay. Chad never discussed in any of these 9 or 10 recordings that you made that his intent was to murder anybody, correct?
Correct.
And during the discussion, there was a talk about getting out of, was it Madison County?
Rexburg.
Rexburg's Madison County, right?
Correct.
Okay. And there was discussion, I heard references to Idaho Falls.
Yes.
And you would know better than I would, but Idaho Falls is about a half hour south of Rexburg.
Correct.
So it wasn't that they were saying run away and hide. Isn't it true they were saying get out of Madison County because it's a dirty county?
That's what they were implying.
Okay, do you know who the prosecutor is in Madison County?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance argumentative, move to strike.
Sustained. Strike the answer or
But-
question.
But the theme of this was that they felt that that Melanie and Lori and Alex felt that the police department were corrupt in Madison County. Is that right?
Objection, Your Honor, misstates the audio.
Sustained.
There's a discussion about Kane, and you recall that. You gave an explanation for that, correct?
Yes.
And they were talking about Kane being, well, I'll ask it this way. Were they talking about these Kane figures being the police in Madison County?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever heard the term fundamental Mormon?
Yes.
What is your definition of a fundamental Mormon?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Sustained.
There's discussions about castings,
Yes.
and you mentioned that in some context, castings are consistent with the LDS faith.
Yes.
And in fact, there's references, and I just forgot his Newell. Was that one of the subjects where there was a casting performed by Joseph Smith? Do you recall that?
I don't.
Okay. So the idea of having a casting is not something that's new or unique to the LDS faith. Is that right?
No.
And when we have a casting, what are we talking about specifically?
The idea of a casting is to remove remove evil from someone.
Okay. And if you're someone in your faith and removing evil from someone or a spirit from someone in your faith as part of the LDS faith, that doesn't mean that the person dies at the end of that casting, does it?
No.
In fact, in your faith, if you perform a casting on someone, the human part flourishes and moves on, and the evil spirit is extracted from that person, correct?
That's what's hoped. Yes.
And that's part of your faith as an LDS person, correct?
I've begun to separate myself from pretty much all religion at this point.
Okay. Now, we talked a little bit about the three kingdoms in the LDS faith. And could you talk to me about what the three kingdoms are that you were referencing in the LDS faith?
Yes. So the celestial kingdom would be the fullness of glory.
All right, hold it. You're going to go quick for me. So we got to slow down and
Okay.
let's do one at a time if that's
Sure.
okay. Celestial kingdom is what?
That's where you would receive all of the blessings promised. It's a fullness of glory. That's the highest attainable reward.
And then when you're in the celestial kingdom, where are you?
You're living with God in heaven.
Okay. And then before you get there, what's the next one?
It would be the terrestrial.
And what is that one?
It's a paradise, and if you were to compare it to Earth, it would be a paradise,
Okay.
basically. And
Kinda-
also heaven, just a lesser version of heaven.
So, and I'm not trying to minimize this, I'm trying to understand this.
Sure.
So it's a halfway point between being with God and halfway between somewhere, correct?
Right.
And then before you get to the halfway point, what's the first one?
Telestial
And where are people in the telestial?
on Earth.
Okay. So there are three kingdoms. You start with the telestial, and that's most of us.
Right.
Or it's hopefully most of us, right?
So telestial would be your earthly kingdom. Terrestrial is halfway between here and there. The celestial kingdom, and celestial is the highest.
And what do you have to do to get from one to the next one?
Just keep the commandments, live in accordance with God's law, take out covenants in the temple. And just live and then uphold those covenants as you live through your life.
Live a good life.
Yep.
Okay. And when you say obey the commandments, you're not going to reach the celestial kingdom if you violate any of the commandments, right?
Correct.
Or you'll have to make some sort of can you do something to solve if you violate one of the commandments? Is there something you can do to fix that before you get there?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Sustained.
Okay. Now, you talked a little bit about the 144,000, right?
Yes.
And again, that's referenced in a number of biblical references, correct?
Right.
Yeah. And that's the people who are um, here, who move on when the second coming of,
It depends on who you're talking to.
okay,
My understanding of the 144,000 is a group of chosen people that will herald in the second coming.
okay. So isn't it true? It's not that Chad was saying he was leading the 144,000. He just felt he was part of the 144,000.
Objection, Your Honor. Misstates the prior testimony.
Sustained.
Isn't it true that Chad was helping to gather the 144,000 and that he didn't believe he was leading the 144,000?
Objection, Your Honor. Misstates the prior testimony.
Sustained.
Is it possible that Chad was conveying to you that he was going to be part of the 144,000 and that he was not leading the 144,000?
Objection, Your Honor. Misstates the prior testimony. Asked and answered.
Overruled.
Isn't it true?
The understanding that I had is he had taken a leadership role in gathering the 144,000.
And Chad never said that he was going to take over the Lord's role, right?
There was I can't remember if it was specifically with him or not. There was some discussion about that, but I don't remember hearing
Okay.
that specifically from Chad. No.
There was some reference at about 2650 on the second tape. We were using Purdy Bird, or what was that about?
Code words.
Yeah. What was that about?
So there were a lot of burner phones that were being purchased and used.
Okay.
And to avoid using a compromised burner phone, code words were used.
But Melanie also said we were using in reference to some email communication, implying that both you and her were using that to communicate with Lori and Alex. Do you have any recollection of that?
I don't remember any email communication where that was used.
Okay. And you would say that Melanie's view of Chad and Lori was more of a mother and fatherly relationship. Would that be fair?
Yes.
Okay. Not necessarily a religious leader of her, more of a fatherly, motherly figure, correct?
No, I'd say both.
Okay. And during the tape, I heard, and this was Lori Vallow saying that she was talking to Tammy,
Yes.
and that was Tammy Daybell.
Yes.
Did she happen to mention how she was talking to Tammy?
She did not.
Okay. The other issue is that there was some discussion about Alex wanting certain people to have some of his items.
Yeah.
Correct?
He wanted his, well, I don't remember specifically.
It's okay.
You have to refresh me.
But something about a guitar.
Yeah.
Xbox.
Yep.
And some other miscellaneous things.
Mhm.
Right. So was it your understanding that Alex knew that he was going to be passing away?
No.
Are you aware of the circumstances in which Alex Cox passed away?
Yes.
And what is your understanding of why Alex Cox passed away?
He suffered a pulmonary edema.
Okay. He had some health issues.
Mhm.
Okay. Natural causes then.
Yeah.
Okay. Did Alex ever display to you or discuss with you the fact that he was aware that he had this pulmonary edema?
No.
This was a sudden situation that came on without any notice. Would that be fair?
There was a point where Chad and Lori contacted Melanie and stated before Alex died that there would be a powerful spiritual attack.
Okay. But you're saying that that at least in your mind, there was no powerful spiritual attack. He died of a pulmonary edema, correct?
Correct.
Okay. But again, the question was that you had no knowledge of any of Alex's health issues before that you were aware, you and Melanie weren't aware that Alex had any health issues before he suffers this pulmonary edema. Is that right?
Right.
Okay. There was some discussion that I heard about vibrations. Do you understand this vibration stuff?
Basically in the same context that, an energy worker or some, you see somebody walking around with crystals or, that kind of thing would talk about vibrations, just an aura or anything like that that's my understanding of it. I never heard a whole lot of it outside of that.
Okay, so it's not something that, at least in your mind, is mainstream as part of your religion.
No.
It's something that would be outside of your religion if someone was doing energy work. So if someone's saying they're LDS and I do energy work, would it be fair to say they might be a little misguided?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Sustain.
Okay. And if I could just have a moment, Judge, may I?
Yes.
We had the opportunity to listen to a couple of lengthy blessings. Blessings in general are not something that's unusual within the LDS faith. Is that fair?
Yes.
People give each other blessings all the time.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily mean they're I'm going to use the wrong word, patriarchal blessing. I'm not talking about patriarchal blessings. I'm talking about just general blessings. It's not unusual for people within your faith to say, I'm going to give you a blessing.
Correct.
And that happens, I don't want to say frequently, but regularly.
Yes.
Okay. Do you believe that it was Melanie's belief that she was being harassed by the Rexburg Police Department?
Yes.
Okay. And do you believe that it was Officer Hermosillo who was harassing Melanie Pulowski?
Yes.
Okay. There was some reference in 1917 on the second tape that your wife said something, well, we don't want to tell them that Alex died, because something about continue to let him fear for the rest of his life. Who are they talking about?
Brandon.
Brandon Boudreaux?
Correct.
So when that reference was made, your wife didn't necessarily want to tell Brandon Boudreaux that Alex died because she wanted him to be fearful of Alex for the rest of his life.
I don't know that she honestly felt that way. He's the father of her kids, but she had a lot of frustration toward Brandon at that time.
And the relationship with her and Brandon was, to say the least, was a heated custody battle, was it not?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, Judge, I don't think I have anything else. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Proyo. All right, you can redirect Ms. Blake.
Thank you. And Mr. Plowski, to be clear, the recordings that were made for law enforcement, Chad and Lori are not on all of those recordings, is that correct?
Correct.
And the two that we heard parts of today, Chad and Lori are on those recordings, correct?
Yes.
At some point, Did you learn whether or not Chad and Alex had had conversations regarding the attempted shooting of Brandon?
There was a misunderstanding that I had, where, so when Melanie and I were married on our wedding night, there was some discussion about that, yes.
And you were asked about your belief that Alex was the one that took the shots at Brandon. Is that what you believe?
Yes,
You were asked about your wife, Melanie, and Lori being close. Is it fair to say they were close?
yes,
And you said it was your belief that Melanie did not move to Rexburg until sometime in October, like mid-October?
yeah.
Is that your recollection?
So
Could it have even been later in October?
might have been November.
Are you aware that JJ and Tylee were last seen in September?
Yes,
So before your wife relocated here?
correct.
Do you know where Melanie was living before moving to Rexburg?
She was in Chandler, Arizona.
You were asked about the Rexburg Police Department being dark. Do you recall that?
Yes,
Do you recall Lori and Chad telling you that they were dark?
I remember the phone calls where they discussed that. Yes,
And you had gone in and met with the police on approximately December 5th. Is that your recollection?
yes,
When you met with the police, did you learn that they were looking for JJ and Tylee?
yes,
And there was reference on the audio, and counsel asked again about it, about Detective Hermosillo was not going to stop. Do you recall that?
yes.
What was Detective Hermosillo doing?
Judge, I'm in objection. He doesn't have any knowledge of what Hermosillo was doing.
Overruled.
Do you know what Detective Hermosillo was doing that he wasn't going to stop?
He was investigating the whereabouts of Tylee and JJ.
So Detective Hermosillo was trying to find a missing 16-year-old.
Judge, I'm in object. It's a leading question.
Sustained.
Did you have concerns for the safety or whereabouts of Tylee and JJ?
Yes,
Did the police indicate they shared those concerns?
yes,
Did Chad ever offer to tell law enforcement where Tylee and JJ were?
no,
Judge, I'm going to object. Lack of knowledge.
Too late, Mr. Pryor. Sorry.
Based on your conversations or conversations you were present for, did Chad ever indicate where the kids were?
Judge, objection. Lack of knowledge.
Overruled.
no, he didn't.
Did Lori ever indicate where the kids were?
No,
Do you recall in the recording where they indicated Melanie would be a target because she was the only one they knew where she was located?
yes,
At that point, did Chad or Lori offer to do anything to assist with finding the kids?
no,
In what you learned regarding how Chad and Lori taught castings, what had to happen to the body if someone was possessed?
Judge, objection. There hasn't been sufficient foundation.
Overruled.
the idea was that if a casting failed, the body would be destroyed.
You were asked about Melanie believing that law enforcement was harassing her. Do you recall that?
Yes,
Do you know who she was talking to about law enforcement?
Chad and Lori,
Do you know who was telling her to avoid law enforcement?
Chad and Lori,
Do you know who was telling her law enforcement was dark?
Chad and Lori,
At some point, did you learn where Tylee and JJ were found?
yes,
Where was that?
Chad's backyard.
I have no further questions.
All right, thank you, Ms. Blake. That will conclude the testimony then of Mr. Pulowski. I'm going to inquire from the state and then the defense, is there any intent to recall this witness?
No, Your Honor, he may be released.
No, no objection to releasing him, Judge.
Okay, any subpoena you were under, Mr. Pulowski, is, you no longer have to be concerned with. You are released from those subpoenas. Thank you for appearing to testify, and you can go ahead and step down. Thank you. All right, counsel, given the time where we just concluded a witness, I'm thinking maybe we break for the day. Is the state ready to proceed with a quick enough witness to be done, or should we consider breaking for the?
No, Your Honor, we were just looking at the time. I think given the time, our next witness, we would anticipate being on the stand for some time, and I worry we would get to an awkward place to end for the day. So we would recommend we simply end for the day.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think that makes sense, given that we're about 3:20 now. So that will conclude evidence for today. For those in attendance, thank you for complying with the courtroom conduct order. For the jurors, thank you again for following the court's admonishment over the weekend. As you break for the day, please continue to follow that admonishment that you are not permitted to discuss the case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. Please don't research the case or do anything to follow any media of the case. And with that in mind, we'll see you tomorrow morning for continuing evidence at 8:30.
All rise, please.